Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video, and this is actually going to be a movie review, a bit different, and this is actually for part one of the Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths movie event sort of thing. So there's three parts. Part one came out probably yesterday from when you're watching this video. Hopefully yesterday, so I'm uploading this as soon after I've watched it and it's come out as possible. In regards to parts 2 and 3, I'm not too sure exactly when they come out. If there are dates, feel free to let me know in the comments. But when the trailer drops for part 2, I'll definitely do a video breaking it down, or at least talking about it, or at least acknowledging it. And the release date can be attached there. Now, this movie review will have no spoilers. Of course, I'm not just going to tiptoe around certain things. I'll bring stuff up, but nothing that really spoils it. But I must say, if I'm being completely honest, this movie for the most part is really just setting up parts 2 and 3, and that's where a lot of the big stuff will happen. Though, and I will mention it as we get into it, I really, really did enjoy this first part of this Crisis on Infinite Earths 3-part movie event. And I've got a specific reason why. It might not be for some people, probably depends on how much you like certain characters, or in particular one character. But I must say, for me, I very much enjoyed it, and it actually was better than my expectations. I actually enjoyed the trailer probably a bit more than most people, but I didn't love the trailer. It looked okay. I'd probably go, okay, that looks like a 6.5, 7 out of 10 movie or something based off the trailer. But the actual movie itself is a bit higher than that, so I was very much surprised. Oh no, I don't want to say too surprised, but I very much enjoyed my time watching it. Now, the movie was directed by Jeff Wamester, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, and it was written by Jim Krieg. I'm not too sure if they've done any of the other movies in this Tomorrowverse, this new DC animated universe that came after that Flashpoint and other, that universe and stuff from a handful of years ago. This 3-parter is sort of wrapping up this Tomorrowverse thing. We don't specifically know why, if it's because of the James Gunn thing, or if there's going to be another DC animated universe after this, maybe part 3 of Crisis, whenever that comes out, tells us what's going on there. But this is wrapping up, and it features those Tomorrowverse characters as well as the animation style. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of this animation style, and especially when the movie started, I was like, oh, okay, because it's got that really weird animation style where it doesn't have too much emotion to it, though there are some emotional moments in this movie itself, which the animation sort of, that thought about this animation goes against. But I'm not the biggest fan of it, but I got over it within 5 minutes of watching, to the point where I was just immersed in the movie, and the animation style didn't bother me. But I haven't really enjoyed it throughout the entire Tomorrowverse universe that's been going on. It probably bothers more people, or certain people, more than it does me. And then there's also people that probably like it a lot. For me, I just prefer the old animation style, but it doesn't really take anything away from this film. But really, one of the core parts of this movie, and one of the big storytelling techniques, is that we're not really moving through this movie in a linear way. It's a non-linear film, which really surprised me. And it is an aspect of the Crisis story, in particular with the character of the Flash, or Barry Allen, but they really use it to throughout the entire part of this first part. And I won't spoil what happens in certain moments around that, because I want you to enjoy the film for yourself. But I was surprised how they used the non-linear storytelling, but also in a linear way come the end of it. And it was just very surprising how they structured it. Now, there are parts missing from this Crisis thing. I'm just going to say it straight out of the gate. There is no Pariah, which I wasn't overly surprised by when watching it, because the trailer had no Pariah at all. So I was like, okay, so they're not using Pariah, but they also just structure the Crisis thing differently. It's definitely Crisis on Infinite Earths. It's definitely Crisis on Infinite Earths, and they're setting up that story. If anything, parts 2 and 3 will be more faithful, if you want to put it. But they do some creative stuff with part 1, which I really enjoyed, and I think it's for the better, especially being around characters you're more familiar with. But essentially, we have Barry time tripping, which is in the Crisis main story in the comics, where he is sort of moving non-linear through time, at least through his mind. But it really does highlight important moments in not only his life, but the Flash's life as a whole, whether it's, around meeting Iris for the first time, which they, pay off at come the end of it in a really emotional series of moments come the end of the movie, but also forming the Justice League, which he also mentions he was inspired by the JSA when he met them on Earth 2, which of course was a movie in this, an earlier movie in this Tomorrowverse, so it was cool they called back to that. And though there's not a ridiculous amount of callbacks to previous movies for the most part, you do see characters from those other movies because of the multiverse aspect, and also just, minor references here and there because of certain events, like what I just mentioned there, where Barry was inspired by the Justice Society to then form the Justice League. The only thing with the non-linear storytelling and this time jumping is that sometimes it can feel a bit messy, but I think that's the whole point. Like, Barry's disjointed from it. And at first I was wondering, like, why is it happening? Why can Barry do this now? But it's explained in the movie. So just, pay attention, because it is mentioned in the movie, but it's also in like a 10-second portion. They don't like go, hey audience, time to listen. This is why Barry can do this. It's explained in the movie, but it's also done fairly quickly. But I was happy with the explanation because it made sense. Now, really, a lot of this movie, like, I want to say like almost half of the movie it almost feels like a prologue of sorts. Like, really, the entire movie to me feels like a Flash movie with like a sprinkling of Justice League stuff, which then will go into parts 2 and 3. But it is very prologue-y, if you want to put it, where it just feels like it's setting up a lot of the motivations and, connections and everything like that. But it does really kick into overdrive. Now, there is a spoiler character, and they don't try and hide who this character really is, but you don't see his proper form in this movie. But you see like certain visuals and stuff, and it's like, okay, that's that character. Now, I'm not too sure if it's I know I'm tiptoeing around it, but I don't want to spoil it if you haven't seen the movie, because I don't know if he's actually in any of the trailers either, but he's in this movie quite a bit. But I'm not too sure if it's the voice actor that I think it is, or if it's in the credits it has another guy, and like the code name that this character is, I guess, given. And it's a very notable voice actor from video games and everything like that. Actually, I'll just say it's Nolan North. Nolan North, who, like, Uncharted and everything like that, and other, voice acting gigs and stuff like that. And he's voicing a character in this, which is influential, especially with the Crisis stuff and what's going on with the Flash. But he's clearly another character that they just don't name, and will probably get revealed in parts 2 or 3. And I'm not too sure because I heard that it was like another voice actor that was playing the character from previous movies and the previous universe as well. So I'm a bit confused by that. I don't know if he's just impersonating him. But yeah, it caught me a bit off guard. But you understand when you watch it, you think, is that the other voice actor who may have played the character in live action? But yeah, you'll understand when you're watching the movie. But speaking of those two characters, the codenamed character and the Flash, they are the two that really do connect back to the former universe of like Flashpoint, Justice League Dark Apocalypse War, specifically Justice League Dark Apocalypse War, because that's like referenced as like, oh, this is why we're being tarnished, or we're being punished for meddling with time, if you want to put it. So I'm very intrigued, because it's not really, as I said, there's that little setup there with that little line there that's sort of brought up in like the first half around the middle of the movie. But I'm also interested to see what happens in parts 2 and 3, whether there's callbacks to that, previous universe and other events there. I'm intrigued. I don't know if it's going to happen, but it's also a wait and see. Now, one thing I did like is that Johnny Quick, the Flash from Earth 3, who's in the trailers and stuff, so that's not a spoiler. This was a bit of a spoiler, I guess, but he's Australian. He's got an Australian accent, which I thought was funny. He's voiced by Liam McIntyre. He also does Aquaman in the movie, and he's done Aquaman, I think, in the previous Tomorrowverse movies as well. Of course, he was Weather Wizard, and I think he's playing Wolverine in the Wolverine game, so he voices Johnny Quick, which I thought was funny, just because I was like, is that meant to be like a weird British accent, or is that meant to be an Australian accent? And then he starts saying Australian colloquialisms, and I was like, oh, how cool is that? He's evil Flash, but he's still a speedster that's Australian, so I thought that was pretty cool. Now, though the Earth 3 stuff, which the trailer sort of gave an indication is like the first taste of Crisis, it is really the day of Barry and Iris's wedding, which is like this Kickstarter thing, and they do some really interesting stuff with Barry and Iris. And this, as I said, it's very, very Flash focused, and whether it is just the Barry Allen side or the Flash side as well. And like, you'd expect Iris to play a part in it, and they get out like straight out of the gate that Iris is a big part of this. But I was surprised how much not only Iris plays into the movie and certain events, but also just like the emotional core of it, both the start and the beginning. And I think that was really well done. And it's interesting because like she's the voice actress who, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, Matt Bomer, and he's the only one that's credited at the beginning of the movie. It just says Matt Bomer, and then no other voice actor is credited, which I thought was an interesting choice, but he carries the movie. It's so much Flash. It's like so much Flash. But like the Iris West character, I can't remember her name. I'll flash it up on screen as well as a picture of the voice actress. she has a lot of lines, and I think she's like billed like one of the last people, which I thought was surprising. But she, is very good in the movie as well, and just how they, set all that up, and that, like the emotional side of the movie, and just the stakes as well. Like they really do show the like through the Flash the stakes of what's happening, and obviously she plays into those different things because of the non-linear storytelling, where we're jumping back to when they first meet, in the middle of their relationship, when they're getting married, and then later on. It's just really well done. Now, I think one of the cooler moments where like you might pause it just to look around because they don't focus too much on like every single person in the room, but it's when Harbinger shows up, who's got like a minor role. Obviously, will get played off more in parts 2 and 3, Harbinger, as well as the Monitor. No Anti-Monitor, I can confirm that, but if you know Crisis, it'd be weird if Anti-Monitor showed up this early, though they sort of like suggest his presence is out there because of things changing, but I won't exactly say how. But the multiverse characters, like in the scene in the Monitor's ship, or like his space station, whichever way you want to put it, very fun scene where they're just seeing certain characters show up, that which they might not have lines and stuff, but just to see them show up I thought was really, really cool. And just even like the what if scenario, for example, like if you've watched the Tomorrowverse, this is an earlier Batman, so there's no like Robins around him and stuff like that, but you'll get him interacting with an older Robin and like Huntress, and there's other characters there as well, and there's actually some emotional stuff around that which I won't spoil as well. But and even just as I said, like once again I already mentioned it before, but you get to meet some of those other characters like the JSA again, like just in like quick time, nothing too important at the moment, but that can change in parts 2 and 3 as well. But that multiverse scene was cool. I think I have a feeling some people might be like, oh, why couldn't we spend time with this obscure character there? But it's just like, I think it's like similar to why we aren't hanging around with like Pariah and stuff like that. We're using characters we know that are core to this Tomorrowverse universe that they've done over these X amount of movies from the past few years. And that's who we're focusing on. Sure, parts 2 and 3 might have that because they do set it up, because there are some introduced characters which are going to play a part in things going on in those later, parts 2 and 3. But in regards to this movie specifically, and people talking, they just focus on your Flash, your Batman, your Superman, and everything like that. Now, I've mentioned the Flash a lot, but the Flash is the core of this movie. It's like I wrote on Twitter, this is a Flash movie by far first, and Justice League movie second, and then parts 2 and 3 will clearly be more core Justice League movies. But this first part is clearly a Flash movie by a wide margin. So there's a lot of emotional moments with them. And they do something interesting in this movie, which I wasn't expecting. And I think it plays off really, really well. And like without spoiling it, you don't see a lot of it, but you understand. I think it's one of those things you don't have to see it, because it was almost like a content sort of thing, and you'll understand what I mean when you see it, or if you have seen it, I'm referring to. Well, you don't need to see the day-to-day of what was happening there. We know what it was. It was a happy sort of thing, and it's just something different that we haven't seen with the Flash. Even in the comics, you don't really see something like it. So I thought it was really cool that they used the setup of Crisis and what was happening, as well as the Flash being more powerful than usual in this story, to allow that to happen. And yeah, I just really enjoyed it. And it just sort of surprised me when I was watching it, just how emotional it was, because it was just something new with the Flash as well, which I really, really enjoyed. Now, as I said, there's this setup for parts 2 and 3. Clearly at the end you can see it. There's certain characters, which there's one character in particular who's going to play a big role, and he has like 2 lines, I want to say. Maybe, I think it might be 1 line. It literally I think it might be 2 lines, like one thing and then later in the movie. But you see a physical change with him, without spoiling anything. You might know who it is if you actually know Crisis. But I'm interested to see what they do with his character, and how it might differ from the comics, or how like the similarities, and then some new stuff that they might introduce. But they set him up. They also set up some stuff with some other characters as well. But yeah, parts 2 and 3 are really going to be like where I think it picks up a lot. I think, like, I don't want to say it's exactly like it, and obviously it's different, but I was getting like Lord of the Rings sort of feels, like it's sort of like a soft entrance into it, with a lot of emotional moments and everything, and sort of building up the story and everything like that, in the new world that they're in here. And then parts 2 and 3 is where a lot of the actiony stuff happens. I don't know, Lord of the Rings might be a weird reference, but that's sort of what I was thinking, especially when we moved into the third act of this first film, and it just sort of stuck with me. So it's not Lord of the Rings, but it's got Lord of the Rings vibes in regards to its setup and everything like that. Hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully someone agrees with me. But overall, look, this movie isn't perfect, but man, it's really enjoyable, especially if you are a Flash. Like, if that's the issue though. I think if people don't like the Flash, if there is anyone watching that doesn't like the Flash, and anything really around him, or his powers, or just who Barry Allen is, then they might struggle with this. And Barry Allen as well. Like, it's not just the Flash as a character, but it's Barry Allen specifically as well. Then they might not enjoy this first part more, and they might just be trying to get through it, so then they can get to parts 2 and 3 where they might enjoy what's happening more. But for me, being a Flash fan as well, more specifically a Barry Allen fan, and just everything around that, I think this did it really well. I enjoyed Crisis as well, and I think they set it up pretty damn good for what's going to be happening going forward. So yeah, I'm excited to see what happens, and I think this movie does a really good job setting it up, as well as just being a good self-contained Flash story as well. Like, they could call this movie The Flash, Crisis on Infinite Earths, and man, it would fit. Man, it would fit. But I'm excited to see what they do next, and I'm just very happy with what we got so far. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like on it to show support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions on the movie, if you've seen it, or if you're going to watch it. Let me know your excitement levels, whatever it is. And if you have watched it, let me know your favorite moment in the comment section down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.